Deleted session, October 24, 1977. Ron noted, Jane told me as we sat for the session tonight that he had some hints from Seth that the session would be on faith. I mentioned 2 questions. First, some comments on my dream about Louis' stamp recently and the series of connections Jane had made based upon it. It sounded very much like another instance of the workings of Framework 2. Second, some comments on my recent dream involving my meeting my parents in the Great Marble Hall, as I called it. I thought it might represent psychic contact with them, as well as other things. They said, "Good evening." Now, in the most basic manner, each person and creature possesses faith, whatever its degree or nature. Without it, there would be no family groups, animal or human, or civilizations or governments. It may seem that the retribution of law holds societies together and keeps, for example, criminal elements down, so that you have operating processes that ensure more or less stable living conditions. The laws, however, are necessarily based upon man's faith that those laws will indeed be largely followed. Otherwise, the laws would be useless. You go on faith that there will be a tomorrow. You operate on faith constantly, so that it becomes indeed an almost invisible element in each life. It is the fiber behind all organizations and relationships, and it is based upon the innate, natural knowledge possessed by each new creature, the knowledge that it springs from a sustaining source, that its birth is cushioned by all the resources of nature, and that nature itself is sustained by the greater source that gave it birth. You cannot be alive without faith, yet faith can be distorted. There is faith in good, but there is also faith in evil. In usual terms, faith takes it for granted that a certain desired end will be achieved, even though the means may not be known. In usual terms, again, there is no direct evidence, otherwise you would have no need for faith. When you feel the worst will happen, you often are showing quite real faith in a backwards fashion, for with no direct evidence before your eyes of disaster, you heartily believe it will occur. You have faith in it. Rob noted with emphasis and irony. They said that is, indeed, misplaced faith. The young woman Frances, who wrote Rubber, with no evidence was certain she would follow, tomorrow if not today. I want to point out that faith is not all that unusual, but a prime element in your life. You can have faith that you will be ill. This should be obvious, because, for example, there are healthy people also, with no evidence of any disease, who have utter faith that disease is hidden within them, or swiftly approaching. It is therefore quite to everyone's advantage that Framework 2 is not neutral. Faith in a creative, fulfilling desired end, sustained faith, literally draws from Framework 2 all of the necessary ingredients, all of the elements, however staggering in number, arranges all the details, and then inserts into Framework 1 the impulses, dreams, chance meetings, motivations, or whatever is necessary, so that the desired end then falls into place as a completed pattern. You must begin somewhere, so you state your purpose clearly in Framework 1. Then you have the faith that the event will be brought to pass. Your own creative abilities are instantly mobilized in that direction. Your behavior in Framework 1 must automatically change. The ways and the means, however, cannot be questioned, for they will come about from a greater source of knowledge than you consciously possess. I am trying to give you some kind of an overall picture, so that you can make your own helpful comparisons and understand more thoroughly what is involved. Often I will use examples that do not involve health, for you can apply them to help yourselves even more effectively, for you will make your own connections. Someone may plan an airplane trip. Everything will be arranged, the last detail taken care of. The person may take great precautions to see that the plane is not missed. Persons may have been contacted to care for the house during the time of absence. Children may have been sent to camp, neighbors assigned to care for pets, and every logical situation cared for. Let us say that this particular place may well crash, and in fact does, after all of this person's planning, hard work and effort. At the last moment, everything seems to go wrong. Nothing seems right. The children do not leave for camp in time. One of the animals runs away. A ticket is lost. Our individual comes down with indigestion or a headache. Lo and behold, for while everything seems so poorly, our friend's life is being saved, for he misses his plan. Later he wonders what happened, that his life was saved, and his plans altered at the last moment. Our friend wanted to leave and had faith that he would. In spite of his own conscious lack of knowledge, he was brought to operate according to the information available in Framework 2. Though he was not aware of it, he lost his ticket, a stupid error, it seemed. The lives and events of all those involved with his trip, the neighbors, the children, and so forth, all of those issues were arranged in Framework 2, so that while the events seemed most unpleasant, they were highly beneficial. If our friend learned of the plane crash, he saw this only too well. If he never learned of the plane crash, and did not have faith in the beneficial nature of events, then he might simply remember the entire affair as highly unpleasant, stupid, and even think that it was another example that he could do nothing right. The entire pattern of your lives is taken into consideration in Framework 2. There is no need for bargaining. Robert does not have to fear that he must give up some creativity for physical freedom, for the two go hand in hand. Give us a moment. Framework 2 contains all the dreams, plans, and thoughts of all human beings of any time. There, the spacious present is operative. There, it makes no difference if you have had an undesirable physical condition for a day or a lifetime. There, you are not impeded by the past. If your beliefs in Framework 1 make you assign great power to the past, then you impede your progress. I have said many times that spontaneity knows its own order, and I am speaking of true spontaneity. I say this because after anger, for example, may seem spontaneous, and may be, but is more often the explosive, finally forced expression of reactions long withheld or repressed. True spontaneity, however, comes directly from Framework 2, and behind it are endless patterns of orderliness and complexity that are beyond your conscious Framework 1 comprehension. The small instance of Ruber's doing the dishes this morning is a case in point, and that emerged as the result of those abilities mentioned in our last session. Rob noted, this morning, for the first time in well over a year, at the very least, Jane spontaneously decided to do the dishes after breakfast while standing up at the sink. They said such an impulse, followed, will lead to its own performance. The means will be given. Before, Ruber's fear prevented him from even acknowledging many such impulses to act. Ruber's assessment of your dream and its conditions is another case in point. the inner organizations immediately trigger all the necessary actions required from Framework 2. This applies to any issue, but again, your creative abilities used on behalf of Rupert's physical condition will give him a normally operating body. Each improvement is to be considered as a significant piece of a puzzle being put together, even though you may not see any connection between one improvement or another. Again, you should not double-check at every moment, as Rupert's suddenly simply came out of nowhere, so will his complete flexibility. Now take your break. It is not simply that in Framework 2, there is no resistance to creative, fulfilling, natural, life-seeking desires, but that the medium of Framework 2 itself automatically adds its own magnification to them, so that once you get rolling, so to speak, the acceleration is spectacular in whatever issue is involved. Ralph said, we have already had hints of this. They said, the entire seasoning book was inherent in the first page. Rupert's fate and habits allowed the initial impulse is freedom, and that impulse is praised, carried within it the means of its own fulfillment, and the book unfolded. What you have seen lately are just beginning sentences in Rupert's condition. The body intends to follow through. In the past, you put into Framework 2 your intent, individually and jointly. It was ill-formed, not certain, cluttered by questions like, if I am well, should I go on tour or shouldn't I? Or will I lose working time or whatever? It was not clear intent, really, on either of your parts. It was constantly questioned. At best, it got you a status quo. I do not want you to blame yourselves for the folly, but I do want to point out that in the past, when Rupert began to show improvements of a significant nature, you fall back into old habits. The status quo meant, with your attitudes, that you could not track improvements. Since you did not clearly state your intents for, say, normal walking and flexibility, and had little faith in it, then you feared that improvements could not be trusted, for in your experience they went so far and no further. Yet any poor performance was taken by Rupert partially as evidence in the other direction. You were caught between the ideal and a very poor performance, one contrasting with the other. I hope, as you understand how Framework 2 operates, that you can clearly state your intent. Rupert's normal flexibility and good health, and that you will be able to see each improvement as a step in that stated direction. Indeed, you do change your psychic organization and hence attract the significant events you want. They fall into place. Again, it is imperative that Rupert realize there is absolutely no conflict, and that his creative work will fulfill itself in certain ways that would be most difficult to achieve other ways, if not impossible, practically speaking. Any conflicts, however, can automatically be absolved in Framework 2, whatever they are. No bargaining again is necessary. The material of mind that Rupert read tonight can help him again now. His creative abilities work, no matter what he is doing, and they will work better and reach further when his body is normally flexible, able to relax normally, as it should. Speaking in the vernacular, you get extra bursts of energy with greater and greater acceleration the longer you keep at it. Other examples should be appearing in your lives. Look out for them. Besides stating your clear intent, having faith in the processes as given, leaving the means and details in Framework 2, you have simply to refrain from worrying as much as possible, and that becomes easier and easier as you go along, for the events themselves and the added enjoyment from life will minimize worry. Give us a moment. You were aware of your parents in framework 2. Rob noted in my dream of October 19, 1977. See it with the whole as your symbol. Basically speaking, these were your parents as you knew them. I believe there is a connection with the man from Sarah. He is not dead. That might very well appear in your normal life as a contact. There may also have been a connection with the house in Sarah. To you, the hall was a neutral enough meeting place, but not one of intimacy, and to some extent, at least, it symbolized the relationship, at least as far as you were concerned. In that while you were a child of your parents, you felt to some degree a stranger, and the whole lacked intimacy. The dream was a statement of those particular feelings. The meeting itself was quite legitimate. You were like people who visit the same building for different reasons. Now that is the end of the session, unless you have questions. Ra said, no, it's been very interesting. They said, then I wish you a good evening. Ra said, thank you, said good night.